Today, I'm bringing you a story that confused the detectives at Dubai police at that time because it is truly strange. It happened in 2010, specifically in the Old Naif area in downtown Dubai. One day, a report came in about a body being found at one of the well-known companies, and the security forces were immediately alerted. The report came in the morning, and it was the employees who had gone to work that discovered the body. When the detectives, forensic experts, and crime scene investigators arrived and examined the body, it was found to be the body of the company's owner, an Asian millionaire and well-known businessman who had been killed in his office. Someone struck him with a sharp object on the head. Since the employees discovered the body early in the morning, it meant he was killed the previous day or late at night. This confused the police because they wondered why the businessman was still in the office late at night, and why didn't he leave the day before? They instructed the employees to return home. They lifted fingerprints and prevented any employee or worker in the company from leaving, interrogating them inside the company. No one was allowed to leave. After they lifted the body and collected the fingerprints, they checked the doors and windows to see if the company had been broken into. There was no sign of forced entry. The killer was familiar with the businessman, and it was certain that they had an appointment. Perhaps they took advantage of the businessman being alone and killed him. It was also found that several items were missing. Valuable things from the businessman's office, along with his wallet and some papers, and small amounts of cash, though not large sums. The interrogation began with the employees of the company, and the detectives used a security force to surround the building while waiting for the investigation to end. From morning until noon, they interrogated each employee one by one. Where were you? What is your relationship with the company's owner? Are you close to him? Do you have access to the businessman? Not all employees have access to him, as there are different levels: workers, administrators, accountants, etc. During the investigation, one of the workers, an Indian national, slipped past the officers during his interrogation and left the company. The officer noticed and said, "Let him go, watch him." At first, they didn't intervene because they thought he might reveal something himself. They kept an eye on him, and eventually he entered the mosque next to the company. They followed him, and indeed, he was praying the dua prayer. They prayed next to him so he wouldn't escape. Maybe he was the suspect, or maybe not. But they kept watching him. Once he finished praying, they grabbed him and said, "You shouldn't have left the company after we informed you. We are investigating a murder. Why did you pray outside the company? Why did you leave?" Inside the mosque, he broke down and cried, screaming, I swear, I'll tell you everything, I confess." He appeared anxious and scared, and he thought he had been exposed. He said, "I'm the one who killed him, I'm the one who did it." They took him to the investigators at the company and began questioning him. They asked, "Why did you kill him?" He replied, "Because he treated me badly. I took advantage of the opportunity when the company was empty of workers the day before, and he was the last one in the office. I entered suddenly, hit him with a sharp object, and stole whatever I could, then went to the workers' quarters. The next day, when I showed up for work, I made sure the other workers arrived before me and discovered the body, so they reported it to the authorities to avoid suspicion on me." The suspect was referred to the prosecutor after confirming his confessions and was part of the crime scene reenactment. A report was written and sent to the court, and at the first level of trial, he was sentenced to death. But the surprise came after that. The case didn't take long in court, and since it was a criminal case, it only took 2 months. During those 2 months, this criminal begged the detectives, the prosecutor, and the court, as well as anyone who could help him. He pleaded for them to allow him to use the phone to contact a relative in India. They replied, "No, you haven't been sentenced yet, and your case is a criminal one. By order of the prosecutor, you are not allowed to have visitors or make calls." He begged, "Please, just 5 minutes to make a call." They replied, "No, until your judgment is passed, and you go to the central prison, then you can request your right to make a call." During those 2 months, the company's managers and accountants discovered that money had been withdrawn from the company's account after the businessman's death. In other words, someone had been using the company's bank card to withdraw money. The accountants noticed these withdrawals. They clarified that they had frozen all company operations after the businessman's death, and that no withdrawals were authorized. They reported it to the authorities, saying, "The man died due to a murder, but the bank card is still being used by an unknown person." Investigations began, and the ATM withdrawals were tracked. Camera footage from the streets helped them identify the person who was withdrawing the money, and they arrested him. This person had been a regular customer of the businessman and was always in contact with him, buying and selling from him. However, the situation was puzzling. How did this person get the businessman's card when he knew the businessman was dead? When he was arrested, he confessed, saying, "I stole the bank card from his wallet after I hit him with a sharp object and killed him." When asked about how the killing happened, he said, "I killed him on this day and in that way." They followed him with his confession. Then they asked, "If you're the killer, where did you hide the sharp object you used?" This was the one thing they hadn't found. When the confession of the first suspect, who said, "I killed the businessman," was received, they asked him about the weapon, and he replied, "I don't know. I threw it away because I was scared." The weapon wasn't found at the crime scene, but the second person who confessed guided the investigators to the location of the sharp object he had used to kill the businessman. He had thrown it on top of a building near the company. This confirmed that the second person was indeed the real killer, which confused the security officers. If the first person had confessed, reenacted the crime scene, and confirmed his statements in court and the prosecution, why would he confess if he were innocent? The investigators decided to check whether the second person who confessed had any connection with the first person, but it turned out there was no relationship or connection between them. They were still puzzled. Now it was no longer a problem for them, but they needed to figure out why the first suspect, who was innocent, had taken the case upon himself and confessed when he had no connection to the crime or to protecting the real killer. They decided to visit the first suspect again at the central prison, and every time he met someone, he kept saying, "Please, I just want to make a phone call." They went to him, and after getting permission from the prosecutor and the prison director, they arranged a meeting between the detectives and the first suspect in the prison. He had been sentenced to death, but the appeal judgment had not been determined yet. When they met him, he said, "Yes, I'm willing to answer questions, but only if you allow me to make a call." He claimed he needed to contact someone in his family. After obtaining approval from the prison management, the phone call was arranged with someone familiar with his Indian dialect. As India has many languages such as Malayalam, Urdu, and others, they brought someone who knew his dialect to listen to the call. When the suspect called his relative, he said, "Quickly contact someone in Dubai and tell them I've taken the case for someone else, and this person is the real killer. I don't know him, but I confess to cover up the treasure hidden in the company." In the manager's office, under the table, there is a large safe with 300,000 dirhams. Once this person takes the money, he needs to notify me so I can change my statements and say I'm innocent. The call was heard clearly and translated to the authorities. They immediately arrested him again. They said to him, "You are not the killer. Why did you confess? Why did you manipulate the case? Why did you do all this for the money?" He replied tearfully, "I endured all this torture in the investigation and prison just to get this money." The detectives immediately went to the company to verify his statements. After searching, they found the 300,000 dirhams in a safe hidden under the desk. The first suspect knew about it, because he had been watching the businessman before. He thought that by confessing, he would be exonerated after stealing the money from someone else with a well-thought-out plan. In the end, the innocent suspect was released and deported from the country, while the real killer was arrested, and legal proceedings were initiated against him. He was tried based on the new evidence that emerged after the first suspect's confession.